Jersey. We'll be discussing this in relation to the redevelopment that is occurring at JFK Airport right now. So to start our presentation, I'm just going to remind everyone, please keep your cameras and mics off. We are recording this information session tonight, so we can post it so that anybody who wants access to this recording has it for future reference. So we're going to start our presentation tonight. I am going to, next slide, please. This is just a quick agenda that we'll be going over. It's a lengthy information session, so please, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat or raise your hand, but we'll be taking questions at the end of the information session. We have a lot of material and a lot of projects that we need to go over. So, we will get to questions. We do have time allotted, so just put it in the chat and we'll get to questions at the end of the presentation. To start off our presentation tonight, I'm going to turn it over to Hirsch Parekh from the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, the Deputy Chief at Intergovernmental Affairs. Thank you, Hirsch.
Okay, good evening, everybody. As Akshay noted, my name is Hirsch Parekh. You can ignore the photo you see on the screen. It's not my best photo, but that's okay. Appreciate everyone joining us tonight. Looks like we have a good audience here with us. And it's a very important information session that we have today. So you'll receive an overview of the JFK redevelopment program from our outreach team momentarily, but there are a number of priorities that we have at the JFK redevelopment program. We are seeking to build a world-class airport and a world-class customer experience for the tens of millions of passengers that travel through JFK every year. We have some really terrific private partners that are working with us to deliver that on that goal. And if you haven't seen JFK recently, there is a lot of construction currently underway, lots of steel going up, lots of construction equipment all over the airport. It's a very exciting time to be at JFK and to see the transformation that is well underway. So while we are striving to build that world-class airport, it's also critical that we are creating opportunities for the communities around the airports and the diverse communities in those areas. So we also have a very important focus on participation by minority and women-owned business enterprises, or MWBEs. In fact, we have a 30% participation goal, which is broken down into 20% MBE and 10% WBE participation. And we're very pleased that across the airport, we have already reached over $1.9 billion in awards to MWBEs. It is a really a great place to be, and there's still a lot of work left to do. And you'll hear more about that throughout this information session. But ensuring access to opportunities for MWBEs is an important focus area for the Port Authority and our terminal partners as part of this redevelopment program. Equally important is ensuring that the construction is done in a way that is safe, that is on budget, that is on time, and that delivers a world-class product. And that is why we are thrilled that this project is being built by the highly skilled men and we can just make sure all individuals are on mute, please. So as I was saying, we are very excited that this project is being built by the highly skilled men and women of the Building and Construction Trades Council and the various trades unions across the program. There are multiple project labor agreements in place to ensure that that skilled quality labor is able to deliver this world-class airport. We have achieved, if you have been to LaGuardia recently, you will see the end product, the goal that we are striving towards, which is that world-class airport. And LaGuardia was also built with union labor, with strong MWBE participation. But we know that not all MWBEs are affiliated with the building and construction trades unions. In fact, many MWBEs are not affiliated with those unions, but they are still seeking opportunities on this redevelopment program. And they are skilled, they are qualified, they have the experience, they are capable of working on this redevelopment program. And so it is through what the information you will learn during this information session that you will be able to understand how you can get those opportunities. We want to make sure that this project is inclusive, that this project is successful, and that we meet all of our goals. And so that's what this information session is about today, to make sure that we can meet all of our goals and ensure that this project is built in an inclusive way, and in a way that really builds that world-class airport that we are striving towards. So once again, on behalf of the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, I thank everyone for their time and joining today. It will be quite a lengthy presentation, so appreciate your patience and in listening to all of the information. And please make sure you jot down your questions and share them with us at the end of the presentation, because we will make sure there is sufficient opportunity to answer as many questions as possible. So with that, Akshay, I will turn it back over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hirsch. So I'm going to turn it over to my partner, Rachel Antoine, to introduce us, and I will give a quick overview of the JFK project. But Rachel Antoine, take it over.
Awesome. Thank you, Akshar. As Akshar mentioned earlier, my name is Rachel Antoine. I serve as the Manager of External Affairs and Community Outreach alongside with Akshar Patel. So we are very excited. The outreach team is very excited to bring this information session to you all. So just a little brief overview of what we are and who we are. So the outreach team is really tasked as the touch point on the JFK redevelopment program. So AK and I and the team here, Natasha, Turner, we are all responsible to ensure that not only we are connecting with local businesses on this project, but really connecting and serving as a liaison to the community to ensure that we are sharing the good news on this project and also the opportunities that exist on the project. So we may not be able to go into details of all the work that we do, but something that is worth noting to you all is that on this project, we have a JFK Redevelopment Community Information Center, which also serves as the public touch point for firms who are looking to connect with our terminal developers, with our consultants too as well. So more information will be provided to you all on regards of the work that we do and how we are connecting with the community at large to further connect you guys on this project. So I'm very excited to be here, and I just want to thank the outreach team for putting this session together and working with our terminal developers to ensure that we are continuously developing and providing these information session for the community. AK, over to you. You're muted, AK.
Thank you. I know we have a couple of people that joined recently, so I see these attendees have the camera, so we kindly request if you could turn your cameras off. This presentation is being recorded. It will assist in making sure this recording comes out properly, so if you need to reference it later, please, so that way you can access it. Please keep your cameras off. This presentation is being recorded. So thank you, Rachel. Next slide. So just a little quick overview about the JFK redevelopment. We're transforming the airport into 21st century first class state-of-the-art airport, just like we did at LaGuardia. I know we do have some friendly competition within the Port Authority that JFK is going to be a little bit better than LaGuardia, but I know Hirsch loves each of our airports equally. But being from Southeast Queens, we're going to take a little pride in JFK. So we're going to unify, we're going to have unified terminal layouts for world-class amenities. As you can see with the traffic right now, and apologies for that, but it's for the long-term benefit. We're redesigning the airport on-traffic patterns to make it more easier for people to access the airport and get out faster, including a centralized ground transportation hub, expanded taxiways and gate capacity, meaning larger planes, more planes, so that way we can get additional flights over here as well, hopefully, and state-of-the-art security. So we're going to be competing with our global counterparts like London and Dubai, and there's no doubt in my mind that under this redevelopment, we're going to be better than all of them. And, you know, as JFK is the premier international destination in the United States, and it's just fitting that we're going to have the best airport in the United States, if not in the world. Thank you. Next slide, please. And as you can see, we have a picture of what it looks like right now. We had three, we have a lot of old terminals that were underutilized, and we have a lot of unused space. So what we're doing is modernizing and transforming it into the next slide, into this beautiful, beautiful airport that we're going to see in the next slide, please. All right, thank you. Right, and you can see what we're doing to these airports are turning existing terminals in space into mega terminals that they're going to compete with our global counterparts. So we're just so excited to be part of this project, and I just want to, before I turn it over to our presenters, I want to thank the outreach team, my partner Rachel, Natasha that is working the slides, Bridget making sure people are getting on the call, and EJ that is helping out, our super intern. So thank you to our outreach team, and of course to Louis and making sure everything is going smoothly. So next slide. And we do have upcoming events. If you need certification information, please sign up for an information session. We'll give you pass around this slide. You'll get a recording so you can follow up on it later. We do have more upcoming events. Tomorrow we're having a Black History Month celebration at the office, so feel free to join us at 6:30. And we do have Hidden Figures for the young ones next month on March 15th. So for more information, please go to our website, newjfk.com. Please join the calendar. Go to the calendar for upcoming events, including for outreach from our terminal partners as well. Email us if you have any questions at jfkredevelopment@panynj.gov. And we're at 144-33 Jamaica Avenue. Please stop by anytime, Tuesdays to Thursday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Before I turn over to the next presenter, just a quick reminder, I see one more person still with the camera on. Can we kindly have your camera off, John, please? It's just to make sure that we can get this recording proper. So please, if you can turn your camera off, that would be really, sorry, wrong John. You had it off, and then so I got another John back with the camera on, so apologies. John Calviero, if you can turn your camera off. And next presenter. All right, so I'm going to turn it over to Skanska and Helmar, who are in charge of the Central Terminal Roadway and the ground transportation project. I apologize, John. You're the right John to come on the camera.
That's okay. So good evening, everybody. My name is John Cavallaro. I am counsel for Skanska Helmar. I'm one of the in-house attorneys for Skanska USA Civil. I'm vice president and National Labor and Employment Council. So what does that mean? It really means that a large part of what I do is draft, negotiate, and finalize PLAs, just not in the New York City area, but really across the country. I want to thank Hirsch and the Port Authority team for hosting this event tonight. I have some good information to share. I hope you find it helpful. And I also want to give kudos to Gary LaBarbera, who leads the New York City BCTC and all of the trades. The negotiation of this PLA was collaborative. Labor harmony was paramount. And the LaGuardia project was mentioned several times already in the opening. Back in 2016, actually from 2015 through 2016, I represented Skanska, the Skanska JV at that time, which was Skanska Walsh, in negotiating and finalizing that PLA as well. So for those of you who may have worked on LaGuardia, you may see some similarities in the PLA, but we actually have some new carve-outs, and I would even advance some better goals. Next slide. So I realize that some of you are very familiar with PLA work. Others may be hearing this for the first time. A PLA is a project labor agreement, and think of it as one universal document covering all of the employers, the subcontractors, the providers, the professionals, and all of the trades, where we're taking all of the differences that may exist in the underlying collective bargaining agreements, and we're harmonizing them in one structured PLA document in an effort to promote efficiency, but also in an effort to ensure that the project is a unionized project, subject to a couple of exceptions, one of them being the MWB carve-out, which I'm going to get to later in this presentation. So PLAs, in generally, they expedite the construction process. They avoid delays. I'm going to touch on what's called a no strike clause. They standardize certain terms, holiday schedules. They standardize differentials, things that may seem very innocuous at first blush, but are very, very important as a project unfolds. There's also very critical to a PLA is when a dispute arises, and a dispute will arise, do we have a uniform standardized mechanism to resolve that dispute? And this PLA does just that. Obviously, with our New York City unions, which I would argue have some of the most experienced and skilled labor forces in the world when it comes to construction, we have a strong referral process. And then also through all of these efficiencies, we're actually reducing costs. Next slide, please. So the benefits are that on a long-term project such as this, which is the JFK roadways jobs, where Skanska Halmar is the prime contractor, the PLA over time promotes more and more efficiencies. I mentioned construction costs, but when you think about the allocation of manpower, when I think back to LaGuardia, at the height of that project, we had 12 to 1,400 craft workers. That is a tremendous amount of individuals daily. And that doesn't even include the project management team that have to be allocated to the right place, getting the job done so productivity is enhanced. We want to utilize union labor. That's kind of the quid pro quo for a PLA. What do the unions get? They get a unionized job. Through the use of a PLA, we're always ensuring that there will be prevailing wage compliance. I know the inspector generals and the integrity monitors keep a close eye on that, and I work very closely with them. In New York City, as a general rule, and there are some exceptions, but as a general rule, if you are paying a CBA rate, you are satisfying prevailing wage laws. And then also, all the parties must endorse the PLA. So there are some exceptions that I'll review in detail, but for the most part, if you are a subcontractor performing quote unquote project work, you're going to be covered by the PLA. If you are a BCTC trade or even some non-BCTC trades, you'll be covered by the PLA as well. Next slide. So how do we achieve this? Number one, when you think about union activity, right, and we think what happened with the auto workers recently, the greatest advantage, if you will, on the employer side for a PLA is a no strike clause. Strikes are not permitted. Despite that, we always hear in the press about a union striking. PLAs do away with that under what's called a no strike clause, which I'll go into in more detail. With disputes, yes, there will always be disputes between the employer and the unions, but you have to keep in mind that there's also disputes between unions and unions where they're claiming the same work. So which trade gets that work? There's a uniform procedure to resolve that in a very efficient way, because the idea behind a PLA is not only to harmonize all the differences in the CBAs, but as Hirsch mentioned, we want to keep on time and on budget at all times. My mantra when I do these presentations is that the work never stops, right? We have to make sure that that schedule is met and a PLA advances meeting the schedule, because there's an inability to strike, which means the work continues even when there's an ongoing dispute. We negotiate differences in existing work rules, and this is going to be a good example where we actually tailored the PLA to meet the MWBE goals and the EEO goals to make sure we're advancing that as a prime contractor, but also in the interest of the Port Authority as well. Next slide. So this gives you a visual of the Skanska Halmar scope of work. You'll see the roadways, the bridges, and the interface roadways, and you could see that the scale of the work is quite extreme. This is certainly a mega project. And when we turn to the next slide, and you see a narrative of the various scopes of work that we have here, you can see just at first blush, right? You're talking about steel girder bridges, iron workers. You're talking about sanitary and storm sewer. You have plumbers. You're talking about high and low voltage. You have local 3 electricians. You have laborers doing the demo work. So you have all these different trades existing on the job at the same time, all working under the PLA. Next slide. So I want to review with you, next slide, please, some of the key provisions of the PLA, so that hopefully when you leave tonight's session, you'll have a good working knowledge of how a PLA operates, very much from a nuts and bolts perspective. So when I say PLA, right, I'm talking about the 60-page document that's been signed between Skanska Halmar JV and the New York City BCTC. But when you think about the complete agreement, that PLA pulls into it all of the underlying collective bargaining agreements. And then lastly, where a trade might have a specific need or an employer may have a specific need with that trade, we enter into what's called a trade-specific MOU. So when you take those 3 separate documents and you put them together, they together comprise the complete agreement over what is the PLA. Now, the concept of supremacy means that if the PLA document conflicts with the underlying collective bargaining agreements, the PLA controls. And what we're doing is we're taking all the sharp edges and all the differences in those collective bargaining agreements, and we're smoothing them out into a uniform PLA document. So the PLA becomes the controlling document, despite that there might be an underlying collective bargaining agreement that says something to the contrary. Next slide. So who is bound by the PLA? Obviously, the Building and Construction Trade Council and the participating affiliated unions, the design builder, Skanska Halmar JV, and then every subcontractor, and when I say subcontractor, I mean service provider, professionals, suppliers, who's performing project work. Project work is a defined term of art in the PLA. So if an entity, a supplier, a service provider, a professional is performing project work, and project work is generally the scope of work that is found in the Skanska Halmar prime contract with the Port Authority, then the project work is covered by the PLA. And the way that is memorialized and documented is that the subcontractors would sign a letter of assent. A letter of assent is simply a letter saying that you, the subcontractor, are going to be working on this job. You've been awarded a subcontract, Skanska Halmar, for example, and you agree to be bound by the terms of the PLA, subject to certain exclusions for work and certain exclusions for contractors. Next slide, please. So other than the no strike clause, which I mentioned, the second most important provision of any PLA document is we know what's covered, right? Those are the entities performing project work, but who is excluded from the PLA? Who is not covered by the PLA? I'm not going to go over this in detail because I know these slides are going to be shared, and in the interest of time, I'll just touch on some of the more important exclusions. Obviously, your supervisory staff, your clerical staff, your staff performing non-manual labor, an absolute exclusion, not covered by the PLA. Off-site manufacturer, very, very critical exclusion. And this is something that's always the subject of very long negotiations with the trades. But here, if you're an entity engaged in the off-site manufacturer, including deliveries to and from the project site, it would be an exclusion under the PLA unless it's covered by the collective bargaining agreement. And I'm going to add a third layer to that onion, if you will, unless the trade-specific addenda ultimately excludes it. A good example of this is take the local 1 UA plumbers. The plumber's CBA will say that a prefabricated bathroom needs to come from an off-site manufacturer who is a local 1 signatory, and that prefabbed unit needs to have a local 1 UA badge on it. So you have the CBA saying that. In LaGuardia, for example, we went forward and entered into a trade-specific addenda and said that we're taking that requirement, and we're now excluding it under the PLA. And in JFK, you're not going to see a lot of those trade-specific addenda the way we did at LaGuardia, but it's important to keep in mind that generally speaking, off-site manufacturer, no coverage under the PLA. Employees of the owner or the direct contractors of the Port Authority, also not covered under the PLA. Employees of Skanska Halmar JV also would not be covered. We're really talking about project management staff. And then also, if you're engaged and you're an entity engaged in any kind of on-site warranty work where the manufacturer issued a warranty and you have to come on-site to effectuate that warranty, then that's a general exclusion unless the contractor has an employee who's already certified by the relevant manufacturer to make those repairs. Geophysical testing other than boring for core samples, also an exclusion. Next slide. And then in addition to that, what you'll see here is that work performed by MWB contractors who satisfy certain criteria, that is an exclusion under the PLA. Prior to the LaGuardia PLA, this was actually unheard of. The reason why Skanska as an entity, particularly myself, pushed for this exclusion, in addition to being Labor and Employment Counsel, I'm also Skanska's DBE National Compliance Officer. I work very closely with the DBE community and the MW community. And it was my experience that when I was speaking to a non-union MW and I said that the project has a labor contract, even limited just to the job itself, there was a certain reluctance on the MWB community's half to enter into any kind of agreements with the unions. And we really created this exclusion in an effort to allow MWB subcontractors to enter onto a unionized project, literally work shoulder to shoulder with unionized trades, but remain non-union and not covered by the PLA for purposes of all of its requirements. And I'm going to touch on that in more detail. If you have employees of a manufacturer or a vendor who need to install their products as part of a warranty, also an exclusion. And then lastly, commissioning, programming, validation, any diagnostic work is also an exclusion. A good example from LaGuardia on that was the baggage handling system, right? The baggage handling system would come, the trades would assemble it, but the actually programming of the system, the diagnostic work and the commissioning, that is done on a basis that is not covered by the PLA. Next slide, please. So the no strike clause, you heard me mention that a few times. One of the most important elements of a PLA, it ensures for us as the prime contractor, but more importantly for the owner, the Port Authority, that there is the uninterrupted and free flow traffic, the uninterrupted construction and the free flow of traffic to the project area. And what it is, it's a requirement that says there's going to be no strikes, sympathy strikes, picketing, or really any union disruptive activity that will impact the project. It lasts for the duration of the project. And even to the extent there's a dispute between two trades or even three trades for the same scope of work, the no strike clause still applies. So as I mentioned earlier, the work continues uninterrupted. And if there is a violation of the no strike clause, we built in an expedited arbitration provision where the matter is resolved literally in a couple of days. That expedited arbitration provision actually speaks in terms of hours, how quickly the hearing needs to be scheduled, how many hours the arbitrator has to issue his or her decision. So we really want to make sure that if there is a violation of the no strike clause, it is remedied, but it is remedied very, very quickly. Next slide, please. So I mentioned that, and some of you may have experienced this, that there will be disputes, not necessarily between the employers and the unions, but rather between two unions competing for the same scope of work. That's called a trade jurisdiction dispute. And in New York City, we have something called the New York Plan. The New York Plan is the method and procedure by which that dispute between two competing unions for the same scope of work is resolved. And there's decisions in what's called the Green Book that historically provide precedent for who gets that scope of work. A good example of this is I could also point to LaGuardia. Typically, plumbers will get water main work on a private roadway. Laborers will get that work on a public roadway. But when you have an airport, you have public roadways existing on private property, a new wrinkle to that. It's that type of example where the trade jurisdiction provisions of the PLA will resolve that. But most importantly is while that dispute is ongoing, the work continues as assigned by the prime contractor or the subcontractor. And I want every subcontractor on this call to understand that even if you get that assignment wrong, it is a going forward remedy, which means you will not owe back wages to the union who challenged the assignment of work to the extent you made the wrong assignment. It is a going forward remedy only for the trades. There's no remedy for back wages. And I know as employers, as subcontractors, that's something that you want to hear is important to you. Next slide, please. So wage and fund contributions. One thing that the PLA does not do, it does not change what a craft worker makes or what contributions would be made for the fringe benefits on behalf of that craft worker. So what the PLA does, it defers to those underlying collective bargaining agreements, and that is the wage and fringe obligation owed by any employer doing project work. And if there's a failure to pay wages and benefits, that is the only exception to the no strike clause. But this PLA actually builds in a procedure where we, Skanska Halmar, would have to get notice of that, and that would be remedied before the exception to the no strike clause would ever be invoked. We have a very detailed procedure where if there is a delinquent subcontractor, we have to get notice, and there has to be a provision where we can remedy that because we would never allow the exception to the no strike clause to ever be effectuated. Next slide, please. So holidays. Seems like a pretty straightforward slide, right? These are the 9 holidays that exist under the PLA. Very important provision, though, because those underlying CBAs, and you could imagine if you're managing 15 to 20 underlying collective bargaining agreements, and they have differing holiday schedules, and now holiday pay is potentially triggered, the PLA reconciles those differences. The other thing that's very important is that many of the underlying CBAs indicate that if a holiday falls on a Saturday, the prior Friday will be deemed the holiday, meaning holiday pay on Friday, or if it falls on a Sunday, the following Monday will be deemed the holiday. This PLA, equal to the LaGuardia PLA, says no. The holiday will be recognized under New York State civil service law. So when Veterans Day fell on a Saturday at the LaGuardia project, Saturday was the holiday, not the prior Friday and not the upcoming Monday. It's an important provision when you're on the employer side and the subcontractor side, because now you're paying straight time wages as opposed to holiday pay for that particular day. Next slide, please. Emergency shutdowns. Skanska as a company has always added a provision for emergency shutdowns, but we also learned a lot and learned more during COVID-19. If there is a significant risk to the project regarding weather conditions, it's not uncommon for New York and hurricanes to be spoken about in the same sentence anymore. COVID-19, other public health emergencies, or you have a public official who declares a state of emergency. We can man the job as we see fit, despite the other obligations of the PLA. So it gives us a lot of flexibility in an emergency situation that otherwise doesn't exist under those underlying collective bargaining agreements. Next slide, please. Safety requirements. You heard Hirsch open with how important safety is. If you ever worked for Skanska before, you know safety is absolutely paramount for us. Safety is the lifeblood of Skanska. We want to ensure that OSHA and the safety requirements are always observed, that the design builder's safety rules always apply to the project, including as applied to the trades. And this particular project is going to have drug and alcohol testing, which I'll go over. Next slide, please. So we have a zero tolerance policy for the use of drugs and alcohol. Project personnel, including project management, are required to undergo drug and alcohol testing. This project has random testing, post-accident, and reasonable suspicion. But I'm going to put a big footnote. New York State has what's called the recreational marijuana law. And when you're on a project that does not have federal funding, the federal government says that marijuana is still a Schedule I narcotic. New York State has a recreational marijuana law that says you cannot take adverse employment action against an employee based on a positive for marijuana alone, meaning that under New York law, there would have to be observation of impairment. So if you tested an employee and the employee tested positive for marijuana, and there was no observable signs of impairment, as those are the exact words from the statute, then no adverse employment action could be taken. However, when you have observation of impairment, that employee is subject to suspension and or termination and can get reinstatement in as quickly as 30 days. The reason why this is important to the subcontracting community is that if you get this wrong under the New York statute, there could be liability for the employer. So I always like to highlight that, particularly with subcontractors on this project who may be working on local projects that have federal funding where the drug and alcohol testing requirements are different for marijuana versus jobs that do not have the federal funding where the marijuana requirements are going to fall under the New York statute. Next slide, please. So the PLA also has an equal employment opportunity statement. Discrimination and harassment will not be tolerated. That includes victims of domestic violence. And then also for persons with disabilities, we as a JV, we as a company, we provide reasonable accommodations. We're not to deny employment, not to take adverse employment action against persons also have been convicted of one or more criminal offenses. This is very much comports with the New York City and the New York State laws, but as a company, we actually publish, and even as a JV, we actually publish our own EEO statement. Next slide, please. So let me touch on the workforce goals and the MWB goals, and then finally the carve out. These are going to be my concluding slides. So on the workforce goals under this project, there's a goal of 30% for minority, except for laborers, and on the laborer side, it's 40%. For female participation on the workforce side, for both laborers and the exception for laborers, they're both 7%. However, the unique thing, which I thought was very genius by the Port Authority, is that they actually created a tier system for the workforce goals. So Tier 1 are 37 local zip codes in Queens County, which are given priority. Then the remainder of Queens County would be Tier 2. Then the remaining boroughs of New York City are Tier 3. And then the Port Authority region are Tier 4. And if you think of those tiers as an order of precedent, that's what's negotiated into the PLA, which I'll show you on the next slide. Next slide, please. You'll see here at the third bullet that the unions must use good faith efforts to recruit and provide skilled laborers, including minorities and women, necessary to meet the goals that I just mentioned on the workforce side. And that is through the union referral system. And if the unions don't do that within 48 hours, we as an employer, you as an employer, you can actually go to another available source. The unions have agreed in this PLA that we are going to give priority to qualified residents from the communities that have been identified by the Port Authority. And there you'll see Tier 1, the 37 local zip codes in and about JFK Airport that get tier 1 priority. Then, as I mentioned, you go to tier 2, tier 3, and tier 4. We want to help the local community through the PLA, not just the prime contract and all the efforts that the Port Authority has taken. We want this addressed in the PLA as well. So these provisions have been addressed in the PLA so that we're getting collaboration from the union in an effort to meet these workforce goals, help the immediate surrounding community, and then the greater community around the airport. Very important for the project. Next slide, please. Subcontracting goals, not to be confused with the workforce goals that I just reviewed. So on this particular project, you have MBE goals of 20%, WBE goals of 10%. The prime contract sets forth a 30% combined MWBE participation goal with an individual 20% MBE goal and an individual 10% WBE goal. That applies to categories of work, and it's categories 1 through 4. Category 1 is professional services. That can include bonding, insurance, financial services. Category 2 is design services, architect, engineering. Category 3 is the actual construction. And then category 4 is the maintenance during construction, the snow removal, the janitorial, the non-construction activities for maintenance that need to be completed in order for the project to move forward. The reason why I want to highlight categories 1 through 4 is that I want people thinking for opportunities beyond actual construction. Obviously, we need MWB participation in actual construction. It's vital to the project. But this PLA and the prime contract with the Port Authority expands that. More participation, categories 1, 2, and 4, hopefully to provide more opportunity, more participation. The other thing that I'd like to highlight is that there's a 10% LBE participation goal, and that's 10% for tiers 1 and 2, and 3% specifically from tier 1. And I'm just going to go to the next slide, which I believe will be my last slide, the MWB carve-out. This was invented at the LaGuardia project, very important to the MWB community. When you take all the obligations that I mentioned of the PLA, and we really just touched on and highlighted the more important ones this evening, if you are a certified MWB and you are not bound to any collective bargaining agreement, and you have a subcontract at $1.5 million or less, you are permitted to work on this job and not sign the PLA. You're allowed to work union-free on a unionized job. Now, this cap, if you will, has an overall cap of $60 million, which is about 5% of the prime contract value, and there's a cap per trade of $6 million. Once those caps are reached, then all MWB work is covered by the PLA, and we want MWB firms to take advantage of the carve-out. We felt at LaGuardia there could have been more opportunities for MWs to take advantage of the carve-out. And the only thing that we're kind of giving back on this is that there's good faith efforts that no one trade would have to bear a disproportionate burden of the excluded MWB work, and that's why you see a cap of $6 million per trade. So if you are a non-union MWB and you're thinking of maybe bidding work on this job, please take a close look at this carve out, particularly if you're reluctant to work on a unionized job, knowing that your company is non-union. Next slide, please. This I kind of mentioned, but I'll touch on it, is that if you're that non-union MWB contractor and you're performing project work, I want you to know you are free to employ your core workforce. That's actually stated in the PLA. And for those, without getting too legal, the unions are not deemed the representative of your employees if you're falling within the carve-out. As I mentioned, you're working non-union on a unionized job, which was unheard of. Actually, before LaGuardia, we never really saw that before. So this is something that's important that the trade support, something important for the Port Authority, something important for the prime contractors, and we'd like to see more participation from the MWB community in this area and take advantage of the carve-out. Next slide, please. So this is just some opportunities. I won't read the list. The slides will be shared. This is my last slide. Take a close look at this, and work is going to be being bid. If you feel that you have an interest in that, feel free to reach out to me or Dave Matthew, who's also email is here, and we could put you in touch with our estimating team, and hopefully there'll be opportunities to win some work. Thank you, everyone, for your time this evening. I will be here to answer any questions, and I hope I shared some helpful information going forward as this project really starts to mature and really become part of the other great work that's going on at JFK.
Thank you, John. Appreciate the thorough presentation, well detailed. I know the last few slides were of great interest to a lot of people on the call right now. So you will get we will have this recording available for people to reference for later. And this is a good slide about available scopes of work opportunities that apply to this particular carve out. So thank you, John. I know you will be around towards the end of the presentation for questions. And so now we're going to keep it moving. I know we have a lot more information to go through. So we're going to turn it over to Terminal 6. I'm going to ask if Sade and her team can take it over from here. So Sade from Terminal 6, JMP.
Thank you, Aksha. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sade Olani Pickham-Lewis. I, along with Joe Gricci from AECOM Hunt, will be presenting. Joe Gricci is the project manager, and he supports all of the procurement activities that we take place. So we'll be tag teaming. I'll do the first set of slides, and then he will do the second set of slides. Next slide, please. I have to say that John Cavallero from Skanska did an incredible primer. I feel like I should get CLE credits for the lesson that he gave. So I'm really not going to go through this slide, only because it's a much more condensed version of what he did. I will just say that JFK Malone and Partners is a signatory to the PLA, and we're here today to talk about how we can show opportunities that can be available to firms that are not union and that can do work within the parameters of the project labor agreement. Let's go to the next slide, please. So here, the scope of work that's covered includes the, I think we missed a slide. AK, was there a slide that talked about the project? Can you go back? I didn't talk. Can we go back a minute? Go back. Go back again, AK. Okay, there was a slide that talked about the project. Let me talk about the project. It just probably got lost in translation. JFK Terminal 6 redevelopment is a $4.2 billion redevelopment, of which 2.8 billion of that is for direct construction. When we're completed, we will have 1.2 square million feet of new terminal space, of which about 100,000 of that will be concessions and lounge space. As has been talked about, we have participation requirements that are 30%. Minority thank you. Minority participation of MWE of 30%, MBE 20%, women participation 10%, LBE 10%, and veterans, services able veterans of 3%. We are allowed to double count with the LBE. So we have a minority firm that's a local firm, we get the double count. In terms of the project's lifeline, the project was approved by the Port Authority in 2021. We closed in 2022. We had a groundbreaking actually on February 23rd of last year. So we're coming up on our 1-year anniversary of groundbreaking on Friday. So we're in the midst of phase one. The phase one, once complete in 2026, we'll have a central hall. The first set of new gates will open, and we will demolish this existing Terminal 7. Phase 2 will continue to build out the footprint of Terminal 6 over where the old Terminal 7 is. And that construction will take place between 26 and 28. And phase 2 will be completed, and the entire terminal effectively completed, and by 2028. So that's our timeline. Okay, great. Let's go to the next slide. And so as I spoke, I think we got a great primer from John on the PLA. Again, we are signatory to this PLA with the port and the buildings trade trade union, and so we look forward to working with firms, non-union firms that are interested in doing work on the project. Next slide, please. So the scope for T6 project covers the 1.2 million square feet of new terminal space, and related infrastructure, including the baggage handling system, all the technology and the likes. Again, John was far more eloquent in discerning in terms of the nuances around. I love the baggage handling versus the commissioning of the baggage handling system. What's excluded is the 100,000 square feet of concession space that is not within the scope of AECOM work, that and so none of the work that's going to be done for the concession and the lounges will fall under the PLA, and so that's set aside, and we'll go to the next slide. And Joe's going to jump in here and talk about the projects and how you can get involved in the projects under the PLA. Handing it off to you, Joe.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Yes, my name is Joe Gricci. I am the procurement project manager over at JFK Terminal 6 for AECOM Hunt. Yes, I am working all things JFK T6. What we have here on the screen is what we have currently out to bid, or it's being leveled, reviewed, or it's about to go out to bid. So this is what we're calling our last group of bid packages for category 3. Specifically, we have the T7 demo, which Ashade mentioned, ornamental metals and railings, metal fabrications, architectural trades, such as woodwork, drywall, carpentry, tile, terrazzo, BCT, painting. So all these packages are going to start coming out, I believe, in March, or if not already out. Not included in this, that Shad already mentioned what the PLA specifically covers for JFK T6. It's all of AECOM Hunt's work, everything within the footprint of the terminal, the apron site work, the baggage handling that was mentioned, and all the roadways that directly impact that infrastructure. Next slide, please. And one thing that's things that are included outside of the PLA that you won't have to meet the requirements are, that's what I mentioned before, where the concessions fit out, any security, artwork install, airport services, ground transportation, equipment systems provided by the TSA or the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, and any FF&E items such as furniture, things for the hold room, etc. So how? So how a non-union MWB contract can get involved at T6? There's 3 criteria listed here, but I have one more at the end. So the MWB contract value must be less than $3 million overall, specifically for that contract. The total amount of non-union contracts on T6 has to be less than 110 million collectively. And then no more than 5.5 million of a non-union work can be applied to each trade. So that's from iron workers to laborers. Now, also including this, which was mentioned on the slide, is that you have to meet all the prevailing wage requirements that John went through earlier, and those are all defined in the PLA and must be met. The goal of a prevailing wage is to pay the rate set forth by law on public work projects to ensure that workers receive reasonable wages, benefits while working on these publicly funded jobs. So in summary, there's opportunity to work here, but we must meet those 4 items I mentioned above. And if you have any questions and any specific bid packages, please reach out to me. My contact information is here. And if you see a trade that was listed on that package, it's very likely that it's been awarded already. But we do have prime contractors, and they are all actively searching to increase and improve their MWBE participation. And that's something we've been driving home through all of our awards on this project. That's it for now.
Thanks, Joe. And so, as Joe pointed out, the contact folks, the contacts are on the slide. I think the port will be sharing this information with everyone. If there's any question you have, please reach out. Joe and my colleague Falana will stay on the line to answer any questions that may arise during the course of this evening. Actually, I'm handing this back to you.
Thank you, Sade. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate for presenting and sticking around for questions, and to your team. So we're going to jump over to NTO right now, and I believe Frank is here. Frank, can you hear us? Oh, there you are, buddy.
Yes, I'm on.
Can you see the slides?
Yes, I can. Thanks, AK.
All right, no problem.
I can kind of see some of you. I'm Frank Mendoza. I'm the Diversity Outreach Manager for New Terminal 1. I am joined by Justin Debra, our Diversity Compliance Manager, and Jerry Harold from Tishman, our Project Manager for the project. Next slide. Just a quick overview of the project. We've been at this since 2018, before the pandemic. When that hit, obviously we took a great pause and came back stronger with the new project in 2022. But this PLA has been in place since the beginning. So we are committed to MWPEs and providing opportunities and access to this project, which will be a world-class terminal. It's all international. We want to be the top international terminal in the world at the top international and national airport in the greatest city in the world, of course, New York City, JFK. It's a great place to be. I'm happy to be part of this project. Next slide. Our team is made up of many entities. We've got the financial sponsors at the top there. NTO is the overall enterprise. We are the public-private partnership. It's a developer-driven project. I'm happy to be part of the capital project delivery team, as is Justin with McKissick. McKissick is a well-known design and construction firm owned by a great woman, African-American woman, Cheryl McKissick. Our design build team is represented by Tishman today. And there's many, while we're already in construction, there's a lot more to come, and we'll quickly go over that. Concessions, especially being one of them, coming up soon. Next slide. Our project is going to be over 2.4 million square feet, taking place of where Terminal 1 is now, Terminal 2 and Terminal 3. The scale is quite immense. So while we are over a year in construction, there's a lot more to come. So this PLA is a very important part of giving access to MWBEs and local firms, emerging firms on a project like this. I always say it's a $9 billion project, but you're not going to get a $9 billion contract today or in the next months or whatever. But we want to find out where you can fit in, and part of that is the PLA. So it's a great door and pathway into the project. So you can see all of the different elements there on this slide. Next slide. We've reached a lot of milestones on this project, including the revised agreement there, as you see, final close for phase A, which we are currently in. Phase B will come after. That was in the middle of 2022, groundbreaking in September, a great day, and many components and pieces have been put in place, taken away, demolished, so that we can build this amazing transformative terminal for New York, this region, and especially the focus of Southeast Queens and the area around the airports. Next slide. There it is. This is a very recent photo. There's a lot going on. Roadways are being modified to allow us to build, which will then be replaced ultimately in a permanent fashion. That's the head house there in the top, at the 12 o'clock point of the screen. You can see the air train, which has been reopened. So we're progressing. We're on takeoff, as we say. The project is moving forward smoothly. Next slide. And it's important to know that the mission and the success of this project is not just a beautiful terminal, obviously that's what we want, but it's all of these impacts that we are creating. Jobs, not only in construction, but for the long term, once we get into the operations and maintenance, focus on the local community, those 37 zip codes, which you all know around the airport in Southeast Queens and Queens in general. We've got that PLA agreement. For us, it's a leading MWBE and local hiring provisional PLA. So it's an amazing opportunity to get access to this project. The community is very important to us, not only in initiatives in education, workforce, environmental and business development, but also in sustainability. We want to, as we construct, mitigate the impact on the community through our trucks, our construction activities, but also be a green and sustainable project when it's complete so that it doesn't adversely affect the environment in the community. Diversity, you know these numbers, 30% MWBE, that's 20% minority, 10% women-owned businesses, 3% to our service-disabled veteran-owned businesses in design and construction work, and ACD participation at 30% is also part of the diversity package. Next slide. So we are committed to this participation. We are achieving our goals, and we will certainly plan and hope, knock on wood, to exceed them. It's an important part of this project. We're in one of the greatest cities of the world, but we're in a great borough also, as Queensborough President Richard says, it's the world borough. So we want to make sure that we bring to the community a successful project and include them in that. As you can see, local MWBEs are already involved in critical work of the project through activities that have already occurred, demolition of the green garage parking structure. Russo is a local woman-owned firm. Creative Construction helped us with the air train protection and encapsulation, which is now open. And demolition of Terminal 2 was handled by Art Baker, a local MBE construction firm. Next slide. So all this is to say that we're providing these access to these opportunities, and we hope that you'll stay in touch with us. And as I always said, we want to know you before we need you. So we've got a lot still going on with the project. I'll hand it over to Jerry from Tishman now.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to just talk a little bit about the procurement opportunities that we have. This slide will speak for itself. And even though we are meeting and slightly exceeding our goals in every aspect, we tell all of our contractors that is the floor, not the ceiling, and we expect them to continue to reach out to trades and increase their participation where they can in both MWBE, local, and SDVOB. So if you're interested in becoming a contractor, we have a Build It Connected. Some of you may be used to it, some not, but it's the program that we use in order to vet our contractors, bring our contractors on board. If you want more information about that, you can go to info@onejfk.com. Next slide, please. So what is the PLA, which John and Sade went into extensively? It's the same program around the entire space. So I'll let this slide speak for itself. The only thing that I wanted to capitalize a little more on was just that the need for us to grow our local participation. We focus on 37 zip codes for the contractor workforce, and as John mentioned earlier, there's no strikes. So we can move on to the next slide, which I will pass off to Justin Debra so he can speak to.
Thank you, Jerry. Good evening, all. Again, don't want to reiterate everything that we've already gone through here, but I do want to highlight some of our thresholds here. So not to toot our own horn, but we are the largest program under the JFK redevelopment program. So our total carve out is slightly higher than the other presenters, and we're at 400 million for total carve out. What that means is it's 20 million cap per trade, and that applies to contracts that fall below or 5 million and below, right? So if you are a non-union firm, certified MBE or WB with the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey and or New York State Empire State Development, you can take advantage of this carve out. This carve out is explicit for you. And there are some requirements, but at the bare minimum, again, John, hit this home is, a non-union firm will be working in harmony with the union firm, right? That comes with a lot of perception and a lot of conversation, but we've seen it through, and they truly work in harmony. Just want to highlight here, if you are a small MWBE and your contract is above $5 million, there is still a pathway for you to work on the project, right? However, you do have to sign a letter of assent. At that point, right, you probably want to take advantage of some of the benefits that the unions do offer. But again, that's a business decision and a conversation to be had. You know, I want to highlight that this is an intentional effort, right? And it doesn't only apply to a direct engagement with, let's say, an AECOM Tishman. This also applies to all the sub work that we do have as well. So again, you know, at any level and any insertion point, if you are a non-union MWBE, we're happy to create a marriage and pair you up with a larger contractor if needed, but there are direct opportunities with our design builder here, AECOM Tishman. I'll go to the next slide. Please. One element of ensuring, right, that you can take advantage of this carve out is at the bare minimum, you have to be paying your employees prevailing wage. You know, there's some conversation about who actually sets what that rate is, but at the bare minimum, we want to meet that CBA rate. Another element is taking advantage of the carve out. You do have to attend what the PLA coins as how to grow into a union contractor, which is a program that is set forth by the development teams and design builders to just provide information to smaller contractors on, you know, what the impact is to becoming a union contractor. At no point do you have to sign on to a union or are you required. It again, just informational purposes. Again, just want to drive this home. You know, we're creating these opportunities intentionally and trying to make a difference in the communities that we're working in. So folks have talked about local businesses. This also is very much applicable to the local residents, right? And we talk about the tiered approach, the 37 zip codes in Southeast Queens and the surrounding Nassau towns, and then the larger borough of Queens. So again, stay connected to us. There is a pathway and an insertion point for you if you are interested in working on our project. Stay connected. I'm going to pass it back to Jerry. Thank you all.
Thank you, Justin. Next slide, please. And just reiterating what Justin mentioned, which I've heard from multiple contractors, both volleying for prime and sub position. Just because you're non-union does not mean that you have to become a union contractor. It's just a program that we have to implement to show you the pathway to become a union contractor should you be interested. Building and Construction Trade Council, pre-job talks with the BCTC. Trades are brought through to understand the work that's performed above 5 million, which we just talked about. Covers all jurisdictional disputes and resolutions, pre-job conferences, and job assignments. Next slide, please. So apprenticeship programs is more geared towards our labor force, but direct entry into construction skills, helmets to hard hats, new pathways to apprenticeship, this is 37, second chance programs. Anyone that's interested, if you know anyone that's interested, they can find a way to get into our program through these programs. Next slide, please. So if you want any more additional information, feel free to contact Frank Noviello. His information is here specifically about the PLA. He was unable to attend this meeting, but he is the point contact if you had any questions in regards to PLA. I'm going to leave a little bit of time so that we can answer some more questions if you have any. Next slide, please. We definitely want you to stay connected with us. I'll pass it back to Frank for him to wrap us up here. Thank you for your time, guys.
Thanks, Jerry. I put some of this, excuse me, this information in the chat. We definitely want you to stay connected. We have one-on-one meetings every day of the week, virtual, in person on Wednesdays at the JFK Community Information Center in Jamaica, Queens. It's out there today. It's a great resource. There's our web page on the website, anewjfk.com. Please feel free to email us, the team, at info@1jfk. Just one note, we have an upcoming live event in person on Monday, March 25th at 9 a.m. We will have more information and the flyer out soon. just want to put that out there, though, put that on your calendars. We hope to see you there. We'll have it's a Meet the Primes for MWBEs, local firms, SDVOPs, and ACDBs. So we hope that we can see a lot of you there and tell you more about the project and how to gain access. Thanks, everybody. Back to you, AK.
Thank you, Frank and Jerry and the NTO team. So I know we just went through a lengthy conversation about the terminal developers and our roadways partners, Skanska and Helmar. So I know the next part of the conversation was to talk about access to capital. So I know there's a lot of information to take in. So we'll go through the access to capital information portion of the information session, and then we'll have some time for questions. So we're joined by our sister agency from Empire State Development Corporation. I believe Ray has joined us to give us a quick presentation on what kind of opportunities that will be available for businesses that are looking to access capital. So Ray, whenever you're ready, buddy, go ahead and take it over. Show's yours.
I'm ready. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ray Salabarios. I have my timer on to make sure I stay within my given 10 minutes. I want to make sure that my partner in lending, Aaron from Greater Jamaica, has his chance. Greater Jamaica is a great organization. If you're in Queens, I would suggest you go talk to them directly. So we have a contractor financing program that provides the first slide. Can you go right to the first slide? And I'm going to just read parts of the slide. Next slide. Next one. Okay. So we have a contractor financing program that's going to provide in excess of $22 million in loan loss reserves to incentivize lending intermediaries to create access to capital to support New York State contractors. So we started with 22 million, but I have another 15 million in the bullpen in case I go through this 22 million. So we have enough capital to make this program successful. The program will provide capital to help contractors successfully execute contracts and ease timings of payments from agencies and municipalities to small businesses, socially and economically disadvantaged individual business owners, businesses in distress census tracts, and MWBEs. The loans can be used for contract project deployment, advances against inventory, construction costs, purchase orders, managing payables, receivables, contract finance costs, and general working capital to support the contractors with a government-funded project in New York State. Next slide. The general terms are program lenders should generally target contractors with revenue of up to $5 million. That's the number that everyone's talking about tonight, $5 million. If you have $5 million in revenue or less, you qualify for access to capital within New York State's contractor financing program. You have to have fewer than 100 employees. Loans will be provided by participating CDFIs, minority depository institutions, community banks, credit unions, and other community lenders institutions, typically offering lending amounts of up to $500,000, but there can be loans up to $1 million if you qualify. Next slide. An eligible contract shall be as a prime or subcontractor on a project or procurement contract and executed in the state of New York. If you receive all or part of your financing backing from a New York State agency, New York State municipality, a county, a town, village, or public school district, or any other legal recognized government entity. Again, these loans support working capital improvements, machinery and equipment purchases, or other related costs required to execute those contracts. Next slide. So I want to spend a little time on the loan loss coverage. If our lenders incur costs, then New York State is going to cover that cost for that lender. We want to incentivize those lenders to say yes to you, the contractor. So New York State will cover 50% of lenders' loan losses if there is no contract assignment in place, or up to 80% of the write-off if an assignment of payment is established between the contract originator and the lender. So for AECON Hunt, AECON Tishman, there is no liability to your organization if you use the assignment of contract. There is no liability to any of the prime contractors. There is no liability to the Port Authority. The only agency that has liability in an assignment is New York State. We worked on this assignment with the Port Authority. Hirsch and his legal team gave it their blessing. We worked with Skanska, a 135-year-old project development construction company, who gave us their point of view on whether this assignment works. We worked with Pursuit Lending, a community-focused CDFI lender with a mission to help businesses thrive. So we looked at all three entities. They all had their say in this assignment of contract, and it was blessed by the legal team of the Port Authority. So this assignment of contract makes a difference to the small subs between getting a contract, getting assignments, and getting funding of up to $400,000 or $250,000. So I just want to make sure that we understand how the assignment of contract works and the importance it is to the subs who are really looking to get these contracts done. I wanted to just, and then we move on to the next slide. The next slide we're going to talk about now is really important also for those of you that need bonding assistance. And next slide from there. So a majority of the state and local contractors require surety bonds, right? This requirement poses at times a really significant challenge to small businesses as they are often undercapitalized, financially overextended, and lack the necessary collateral to meet the requirements of getting bonded. So New York State has a bonding assistance program. It's a $22 million program, guarantee program, designed to help SETI-owned businesses, MWBEs, and other small businesses secure surety bonding for New York State agencies, and other government-funded contractor opportunities. Next slide. So the bonding assistance program provides a financial assistance to help small businesses and minority-owned businesses and service-disabled veterans secure surety bonding. ESD, again, provides guarantees up to 30% or a maximum of $600,000, whichever's less, on the bond line of individual contract. Again, we're using $22 million from the money funds that we have to make sure we have enough money available, but I have $50 million in the bullpen ready to step up if we need to. Next slide. So business eligibility, real quick, the maximum bond line for a project will be $2 million generally. Minimum average gross revenue of $400,000 is required. Your minimum credit score is 600. You're gonna have to have previous experience completing similar work, and the applicant cannot have any unpaid judgments, warrants, or liens. And your applicant should not have any surety losses on their record. And you must be pursuing a publicly funded project, such as what's going on in the JFK and the airports, the Buffalo Bills project in Western New York. There's a slew of projects now that the bonding works for. I'd like to end with this. So the application process is relatively simple. The next speaker, Aaron Kurlander from Greater Jamaica, is one of my premier lenders. So if you are in Jamaica, Queens, or in Queens, I suggest you reach out to Aaron directly. If you want further information, I'm going to do something I always do, and it seems to work. I'm going to give you my cell phone number. All right, my name is on the screen, Rafael Salaberios. My cell phone number is 646-599-6493. 646-599-6493. If you text me your name, your email address, the name of your company, and what your needs are, either I or someone from my team will get back to you immediately and put you on the road to getting access to capital. Hirsch and the folks at Port Authority, I appreciate the opportunity for what you give me now, and I've given Aaron an extra 2 minutes to go forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ray, and thank you so much for giving us your cell phone. I know that makes it easier for a lot of our small businesses just to be able to send a text. I know sometimes emails and a lot of stuff going on, so appreciate it making it easy for people to have access to you and be able to access these great opportunities. And you stole the words out of my mouth. I won't get in a little trouble here. My favorite nonprofit in Southeast Queens, Greater Jamaica Development Corporation. They are a great partner. Their vision is to make sure they're supporting our businesses. So I want to thank the executive director, Justin Rogers, for allowing Aaron. I know it's been a busy night for you. I know that you had several stops for this evening. So whenever you're ready, I'm going to pass the mic over to you, Aaron. Thank you for joining us tonight and being able to continue this conversation about access to capital.
Thanks, really appreciate it. Thank you to the Port Authority and thank you to Ray and ESD, all great partners of ours. Greater Jamaica, as it was said, we're a local nonprofit based right here in Southeast Queens. Tonight, we're going to talk about our community development financial institution and the kind of technical assistance that we could provide. Next slide, please. Got it. Can't seem to advance it. Hold on. Try this again. Is there a way to put it back up? Yeah. I lost the slides.
Just give 1 second. We're putting it right back up. Sorry.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry about that.
There you go. Can you see it?
I don't see it yet, but okay. So if you could go, I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. So I'll take it over from there. For some reason, my screen's not showing it. Uh-oh. The app is kicking me out. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. We're
Okay,
on the
great.
pie chart slide.
I'm just going to go from here then. Yeah.
Okay.
Again, I apologize for not being on screen, but so Greater Jamaica provides technical assistance to industrial type businesses like the construction industry throughout Queens, specifically though in Southeast Queens. Just a little history about our services. We've provided over 2,000 direct technical assistances in our catchment area over the last few years, and about 47% of those went to Black-owned businesses. And this is again right in.
Aaron, you muted yourself, I think. Apologies, Aaron, we can't hear you. I think Aaron is having some technical difficulties. Can you hear us, Aaron? Apologies for that. Let me give him a text to make sure.
Can you hear me?
2 seconds. Oh, there you go. There you go.
Okay.
Aaron, can you? Yep, we could hear you.
Okay, great. Sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties here. So like I said,
No worries. Go ahead.
About 47% of our technical assistance goes to Black-owned businesses. Next slide, please. And just to visualize that kind of assistance and how the proximity to JFK presents itself, this is a map of the area around JFK and the concentration of Black-owned businesses we've been able to service in that area. Again, really concentrated on the areas right around JFK. Next slide, please. Our CDFI lending, our lending has been in 2023, just to give you again perspective on the kind of loan fund we are. 100% of our lending went to MWBE businesses, 64% went to Black-owned businesses, 15% went to Latino, Latinx businesses, and about 55% of our lending went to female-owned businesses. And regarding construction-related, 62% of our lending in recent years has gone to those with businesses who have government contracts. Next slide, please. So what kind of a loan is right for your business? Our loan fund does do all kinds of lending, but tonight we're going to be speaking specifically about invoice or contract financing, and specifically about the kind of program that Ray was talking about. businesses who have contracts with government agencies here in the state of New York. And in that case, we can go up to $600,000 on those type of contracts. They're contract-based, they're invoice-based, and they're for businesses who have contracts in hand with a government agency. And as a federally certified CDFI nonprofit lender, we're here to assist you and help you execute and get mobilized for those kind of contracts. But we do also do lending around other type of lending if you do need for traditional term loans or lines of credit or things like that. But really, we're really going to focus on the invoice contract financing program. Next slide, please. So one question we get all the time is, you know, my credit or some of the things in your past. Just so you know, with us, your credit score will not matter as to whether or not you get a loan from us. We do run your credit. We do look at the items on it. We want to see that you're current on your debt, your current debt. But if you have a past issue, if you had a divorce that hurt your credit, if you had some hiccup that is in the past that you've been able to overcome, your historical activity on your report will not get in the way of you getting a loan with our loan fund. Next slide, please. So what can you use it for? Again, we're going to be focusing here on working capital and bridge loan money because that's what this, you know, the activities around JFK are about. But you can use it for other uses. But really, what we're hoping for is we're hoping to help you get those, when you get those contracts, to help you be able to finance and mobilize for those contracts. So we're going to provide you working capital and bridge loans while you're waiting for your funding sources from your primes or from whatever authority it may be that will be actually providing the funding in the very end. Next slide, please. Again, like I said, 62% of our lending has been to businesses doing government work. And we've been doing a lot in the construction trades, electrical, plumbing, just general construction, masonry, architects, people in the transportation sector in and around government contracting, engineering firms, cleaning firms. All those entities would be eligible to apply for a loan. Next slide, please. Click it one more time. I think it'll pop up. There we go. All right, sorry about that. So just to give you a couple of examples, we recently did an electrical contractor for a $100,000 line of credit on government work. It was a rate of 10.25%. Again, it's interest only, these loans. It's interest only means you only make the payments for the months you have. So the rates vary, but your payments are really low while you have this capital out because you're not paying down any of the principal. You're just paying your interest payments spread out over, again, that's an annual rate. So when you're going to have this money for a few months on a contract, you know, the rate will shift, but it's very affordable capital. We did someone who had a contract with the Port Authority who installed RF systems, and that was a $35,000 term loan because that was a long-term contract and that was the best option for him, which was to actually pay it down with principal and interest each month, and kept that contract working well for him. And then we did a contract loan for a curtain wall installer. It was a $50,000 contract, and that was at 7.75%. And that was a contract loan, so that was an interest-only type of line against that construction project. Next slide, please. So we're here to help. Greater Jamaica, as it was said, we're a nonprofit. We're located here in Southeast Queens. We are eager, willing, and able to help businesses mobilize, get the funding they need, get the technical assistance they need to provide so they can mobilize and execute on contracts. And I'm here to take any questions if you have them. And if you need to get in touch with us, you could always email us. You could call us by phone. You could visit us online. You go online. There's a short intake form that would help one of our reps be in touch with you. We look forward to hearing from you. I'm here to take any questions if you have.
Thank you, Aaron. Appreciate that. Before we jump into any questions, I want to thank all our presenters this evening for joining us and providing such an in-depth information. I know there was a lot to take in. Before we get to Q&A, I want to let Hirsch give closing remarks. so we can tie this all together, what everybody presented. Hirsch?
Great, thank you, Akshar, and thank you to all of our presenters at Skanska Halmar, Terminal 1, Terminal 6, Empire State Development, and Greater Jamaica. And I think for our audience, just to sort of tie all of this together, right? I said at the beginning that MWBE participation is such a strong focus area for all of us on the JFK redevelopment program. And that is participation by firms that are affiliated with unions or even non-affiliated with unions, making sure that you are aware that there is an opportunity for you, understanding how to access that opportunity. In addition to that, we understand that oftentimes MWBEs may struggle with having sufficient capital to work on a project or a contract. And so we wanted to make sure to also share with you resources about access to capital between our partners at New York State, our partners at Greater Jamaica. There are options available to you to make sure that you can bid on, be awarded, perform, and execute a contract at JFK. It is critical that you, as MWBE contractors, if you're not already engaged with us, reach out to our community outreach team, meet with the developers, every single developer and contractor you met on this call, Terminal 1, Terminal 6, Skanska Halmar. They have office hours at our Community Information Center. Schedule a meeting to meet with them directly in person and look to see where you might be able to fit in as a contractor, as a subcontractor on this historic transformational infrastructure project. It is, again, it is our priority. It is our goal to make sure we have an inclusive program with strong participation by MWBEs that is delivered on time and on budget in a safe manner. And that is why we appreciate all of our partners being here tonight, and we appreciate all of you being here tonight as well. So let me turn it back over to Akshar to begin our Q&A.
Thank you, Hirsch. Well put together. I know there was a lot of information to take in, and you summarized why we did this information tonight, and we made sure our partners came out and gave this information. So what I'll do right now is we can either raise your hand, and I can call on you to unmute yourself, and we can ask you to give your question, or you can put your questions in the chat now. Apologies, it seemed the chat was very active during our presentation. So I probably have missed some questions over there. So I know if you put a chat in the question, can you just copy and paste it again in the chat right now so we can make sure we get to everybody's question. So please raise your hand or put your question in the chat. So one of my team members is monitoring the chat. I'm going to try to monitor the question. Esther, I see your hand raised. Would you like to unmute yourself and go ahead and ask your question? All right, let me help you unmute yourself. Oh, there you go. Yes, we can hear you, Esther.
Okay, thank you. Where can we meet the contractors that we could have a face-to-face discussion about where we could fit in with that contractor based on what we're doing?
So you're asking to have a one-on-one meeting with our partners? Is that what you were asking?
With the contractor, as you just said, we advised us that we could meet with them. Maybe we could subcontract with them. So I'm asking you, where can we meet them?
Oh, so the first step I think Hirsch mentioned was that we do have each of our terminal partners and Skanska Halmar have office hours at the Community Outreach Center. So I think that would be the first touch point where you can have a conversation with our terminal partners and with our roadway partners to make sure to see how you can fit in, and then that way you can continue to have the conversation about what opportunities you're best to bid on. Anything you want to add, Hirsch, or did I think I got a question correct, right? Is that what you're asking, Esther?
Yes. Could you put that information in the chat so we can have it down, please?
Yes, we will put that in the chat. So.
Thanks.
All right, Esther. So we will put that information in the chat, and I think my team members and terminal partners and Skanska people are putting the information in the chat. So we will send this We will send contact information to all the attendees as well, so you will have a follow-up email with everyone's contact information as well.
Great, thank you.
All right, so I'm gonna go back to the chat. I see Robinson has a question. So I'm gonna do chat hands question. So so I'm gonna go to the chat right now. Go ahead, Robinson.
Yeah, how you doing? So I'm certified by the city and the state. I'm currently waiting for the New Jersey and New York and New Jersey, which I guess is the DOT to approve me. Do I still qualify to bid on this project?
So I believe Gloria from our certification team is here. If I misspeak, you can chime in anytime. But I believe the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey has its own separate certification process. Besides New Jersey, New York, and the city.
That is correct.
So thank you, Gloria. If you want to chime in and just take it home for me.
Yeah, that is correct. So just because you're certified with New York City and or New York State or whichever other agency you stated, the Port Authority of New York, New Jersey has their own separate entity. So if you're not certified with us, we do encourage you to become certified. Natasha just put in the chat box the email that you will go to apply for online at our website, which is www.panynjsd.com. If you have any questions or need help regarding certification, Natasha will put my number in the chat box as well. I'm here to help you become certified if anyone needs help. And if anyone is not certified, I saw a lot of people in the chat saying they were certified, so that was a good thing.
I actually applied at the same time that I applied for the state, but the state certified me, but
the state certified you and you. Sorry.
I applied for both at the same time, but NYNJ hasn't still answered me.
So when you applied for New York State, you checked that addendum box for them to fast track it over to us? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, so what you're gonna have to do is confirm with New York State that they actually did fast track it over to us. And if so, then we should have that in our intake.
Thank you.
So again, once you reach out to them just for confirmation, you can give me a call.
Hey, Akshar, if I may, just want to mention for the terminal developers, and particularly for the new Terminal 1, Robinson, to answer your question, while you are waiting on Port Authority MWB certification, it does not preclude you for bidding. So please see what opportunities we have at our project and others under the redevelopment program to see what is fitting for you, and then start those conversations.
And I'll just add, for JFK specifically, in order to receive MWBE participation credit, we do accept New York State certified firms. So if you are certified by New York State as an MWBE, you would be eligible to receive MWBE participation credit. However, as Gloria said, we do strongly encourage you to also get your Port Authority certification, because there are many other projects that the Port Authority has where we do not accept New York State certification, and you would not want to miss out on opportunities on other projects as well. So congratulations on getting your New York State certification. That is a big step. And as Justin said, we do encourage you to explore and bid on opportunities that are a good fit for you. But you should also work on your Port Authority certification just to make sure you are in the best position to bid on and receive, be awarded opportunities across all of our Port Authority projects and facilities.
Thank you, Hirsch. I see somebody's hand in the chat. Somebody's hand raised. Christina, would you like to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Hi there, Christine from Renewable Recycling. My question is, if we were to be awarded a portion as a subcontractor, what's the timeline between being awarded and providing our service and or facilities? what would be the timeline? Because in order to get everything together that we would need to provide the service or the utility.
So I think, do our terminals want to answer, or Skanska would like to answer that question?
So on behalf of Skanska Halmar, that very much depends on the scope of work and where it fits in the schedule. To say it would be 4 weeks, 6 weeks, or 8 weeks would actually be an incorrect answer. And it's gonna vary also depending. What I would suggest, I did post in the chat box David Matthews' contact information. If you have a particular question on the roadways package for the service that you're certified for, we could put you in touch with an estimator who would be able to give you a better timeline.
Okay, and then my second question would be, I have a Business Integrity Commission license, which provides me the authority to haul, because I have a contract with New York City Housing Authority, and I cannot go on their property without that license. Is this the same if I'm providing goods and services for JFK? Do we need the Business Integrity license?
So at the Port Authority, we have our own integrity monitoring process. And so you should work with your whoever the contractor is on the project that you are looking at in order to understand what that process involves. With the Port Authority, we have our own integrity monitoring program.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Hirsch. Appreciate the clarification. I'm going to go a couple of quick questions in the chat that I might be able to answer in rapid fire, because I know time is of the essence. Are there opportunities for food vendors? Yes, there will be concession opportunities at the terminals, but that so that it's a little there will be opportunities for food vendors, so there are concession opportunities. Let me see if I can. Maybe one of our terminal partners can answer this question. How do we get access to project documents? Would it be Building Connect?
Hey guys, so project documents are only available after you've gone through the trade tap for Terminal 1. I don't know about the other terminals, but for Terminal 1 project, they're only available after you've gone through the trade tap process and you're bidding on a project, a portion of the project. You'd sign an NDA and then the documents would be released to you if you wanted to bid a portion of the work.
Hi, this is Joe with over at Terminal 6. Same rules apply here. It would have to be trade tapped, get invited to the bid, sign the NDA, and then you'll be able to receive all the applicable documents.
Thank you. I'm going to ask one more question from the chat, then go to the hand. Will there be opportunities for structured cabling and IT services construction? Terminal partners, if you know that answer, or Skanska, Halmar?
I could jump in here. Okay, it's Justin with the new Terminal 1. Absolutely, there will be opportunities. I think at the specific point in the project, things shift and change. I encourage you to connect with us on our one-on-one hours so we can talk through specific needs for our project.
Thank you, Justin. I know Gray has been holding their hand patiently. So would you?
Thank you for that answer. How do I connect with you one-on-one on your one-on-one hours? Or is that something that's in the chat?
That is in the chat. You can also go to anewjfk.com, work with us tab. Each of our terminal partners has their own page with additional information and their contact information. But we will probably send everybody that participated on today's call a follow-up. People will email with everybody's contact information as well directly. But we've been putting everybody's contact information in the chat if you need to email them right now as well. So just go through the chat. It might be getting bumped up with every message that's coming, but we will put it out again periodically till the presentation's over.
Awesome.
Yeah, Gray, O'Neill.
Hi.
Yeah. Go ahead.
My name is Gray Nina from G&J Leading Construction. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. I have a couple of questions, but they were already answered. But my last question is, I see all this help that you have over there, over here in this program, but this help that you have is just for JFK work, or any other Port Authority project?
Are you talking about the access to capital portion of our presentation?
Access to capital, bonding, and all that stuff. Yes.
So the presentation that was given by ESD or Greater Jamaica, Aaron or Ray, would you want to jump in before I say? I think you might be better equipped to respond to that.
Ray, you want to go first, or? I'm happy to go. If it's in Queens, the project's in Queens, or if the company's based in Queens, Greater Jamaica is definitely available to help. And regarding Empire State Development, if Ray's there, I'll let him chime in. But definitely there are other CDFIs across the state. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to refer you out if it does not fall within our catchment area.
Yeah, and I think Ray may have dropped off or may having some technical issues. So if you're looking for additional access to capital on projects that are not at JFK and under the redevelopment program, please reach out to Ray directly, because that program is available for many projects that are being undertaken and led by a government agency, and the Port Authority is a state government agency. And so it's very likely that this type of access to capital resource would be available through the state for other Port Authority projects. However, again, I encourage you to reach out to Ray directly just to discuss further.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron and Hirsch. I'm going to do some questions in the chat real quick. I know we're almost out of time, so we have somebody that asked, who should I contact to discuss opportunities for construction project management services and training? That goes for the IT opportunities. You know, everybody's information is in the chat. Please contact NTO directly, Terminal 6 directly, and Skanska Helmar directly. They have all office hours in the Community Outreach Center on Jamaica Avenue. So please set up the appointment, and you can set up a one-on-one time to talk to them. I believe somebody asked, how do you get certified if you're not certified? Gloria, I believe she already put in the information in the chat. You can reach out to, it's on the website. Thank you, Natasha. It's on the website. It's www.panynjsd.com. And that's where you can find the application for the certification.
And Akshay, let me just speak to that point one. So certification, MWB certification, is such an important tool to have. It opens up opportunities for you. It gives you access to not just capital, but also training programs and other things like that. There are almost always MWB participation goals on major projects like this. The PLA carve-out that was discussed earlier, that is available only for MWBE certified firms. So it is something that if you don't already have the certification by the Port Authority, we please begin that application process. You see the information on the website. I just want to address, certification is free. There is no cost to be certified. So if there are individuals out there charging you a fee to assist you in certification, please do not waste your money. Use your money on other more productive uses. The Port Authority and many of our sister agencies across the city and state provide certification assistance. So if you don't already have that, please begin that. It is free. There is no cost for certification. And all of these programs that we are talking about are available for MWBs.
Sorry, guys. I hope that wasn't for me. The system kicked me out. I had to log back in.
No, no, you're good. Good.
It looks like you sound like you did good, Hirsch. Thank you. You could take my job.
No, nobody's taking you, Gloria. We need you. You're irreplaceable. You get all these firms certified, and as you can see in the chat, a lot of them are appreciative of your hard work. So if you do have questions, make sure you reach out to our certification team. I'm telling you, they're the smartest people in Port Authority. Sorry, Hirsch. But there's no cost to certification. Thank you for answering that question. I think I might have missed one question before that. Yeah, I think somebody asked who do I contact for security guard services, watch guard, and patrol. Again, please reach out to the terminal partners depending on the scope of work and what phase there are different opportunities for you to get involved. So that's the best way I can reiterate Hirsch's point. Email our partners directly, set up an appointment at the outreach office and have a one-on-one conversation. So that way we can figure out how we can get you involved in this project. There is a PLA carve out, and I'm just going to freeball a quick 30 seconds here. We want to maximize benefits of the PLA carve out, so please take advantage of it. See how you can use this to your opportunity. We want to make sure local firms have an opportunity to work on an mega project right in their backyard. So please make sure you talk to our terminal partners. Please talk to ESD. Please talk to Greater Jamaica. Greater Jamaica is great. They will try everything in their power, and you saw that 100% loans to MWBE. That is the mark we want to hit. So please reach out to our partners. So we are here to help. Think I got everything else then. So if there is no other questions, I'm going to take a point of privilege and thank our super outreach team. I want to thank Natasha Turner first for managing the slides, dealing with all the edits and making sure. I know we had a little hiccups, but thank you for managing it. I want to thank Bridget Allen, our office manager. We couldn't be anywhere without her. I want to thank our super intern, EJ, for always holding it down. I want to thank Louis Flores, our supervisor. He's never seen, but always working hard in the background, making sure we're doing what we need to be. And I want to thank my partner in crime, Rachel Antoine, my co-manager. And of course, I want to thank Skanska Helmar. I want to thank NTO. I want to thank Terminal 6. I want to thank ESD, Greater Jamaica Development Corporation. And I want to thank the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey and Hirsch for making sure we got this information out there to the community. Please reach out, follow up with us. If you have any questions, you know where to find us. We're open Tuesday to Thursday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. on 144-33 Jamaica Avenue. If not, call us, email us. We will get back to you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Have a great evening. Take care.